Hello, and welcome to the Profit Builder blog. My name is Vicki Suter, and I'm your host. And these blog posts are all about helping you grow, thrive, and prosper in your business and in your life. In today's episode, I have my friend and colleague, Sonja Stetzler, and she is going to be talking with us about conversational intelligence. And Sonja is an executive communications coach, and she's the owner of Effective Connecting, a training company specializing in developing and improving employee communication skills. And one of her programs is Conversational Intelligence, and it teaches how quality conversations shift body chemistry, guide our ability to develop trust, and build better relationships. And this translates into increasing employee engagement, reduced turnover, and higher productivity. So welcome, Sonja. Thanks so much for being a guest on the blog. I really appreciate it. And this whole topic of conversational intelligence very much intrigued me. And I thought that it would be a great topic for us to share with our listeners because, you know, the whole issue, right, of productivity and effectiveness in the workplace, organizations are really nothing more than the people who make them up. And the better we are at communicating and better we are as leaders and understanding what makes people tick, the more effective we can be in building great companies.
Absolutely, Vicki. Thank you for having me here.
Yeah. So you talk about conversational intelligence and how there are some ways to communicate effectively with people to produce results. But before we kind of jump into that level of detail, can you, in layman's terms, just explain what is conversational intelligence?
Absolutely. So what conversational intelligence is, in layman's terms, it's a set of skills that enable one to develop trust. We get things done through conversations.
Mm-hmm.
That's how we achieve goals. That's how we get anything done. I know we have other channels of communication, but it's really through our conversations that enable us to get to where we want to go. So by enabling trust through the words we use and the tone of voice that we use, when we enable trust to form, what we're doing is we're shifting our body chemistry and the person to whom we are speaking. It raises oxytocin and dopamine, which are our feel-good hormones, and it reduces cortisol, which is our stress hormones. So essentially, it's through the words that we use that we form this partnership with the person we are conversing with.
Okay, so you're saying that the intelligence part of it is understanding how when we are in conversations with people, that certain ways that we speak, words that we use, approaches that we have in those conversations can either trigger a good reaction with somebody or a poor reaction with somebody. And if in a work environment, if we want people to be more effective in helping them be more successful in their jobs, us having some more intelligence about how to communicate effectively so that we're triggering the what did you say, the oxytocin and the serotonin, the like good, feel good chemistry in our brain, that's going to allow us to be more effective as leaders in helping our team rise up and take more ownership and be, I know that's a bit of a jump that I just made, but it's really like to have people, as I listen to you, it's about having people more engaged. Yes?
Oh, yes, and that is a big part of it. So priming for trust, when we activate the part of the brain, which is the front part, the prefrontal cortex, we are using language that is inclusive, appreciative, it is positive. And when we use language that is criticizing, judgmental, exclusive, then what we're doing is we're triggering the back part of our brain, the limbic brain. And part of that back part of your brain is a little tiny piece called the amygdala. It's no bigger than your thumbnail, but it's there for a reason. It's there to protect us. So when people feel that they are being challenged, or they're feeling that they need to protect themselves, either physically or emotionally, this limbic brain comes into play. It shuts down the prefrontal cortex, which is where we have trust, and distrust arises. And when we have distrust, we have disengagement and we have lower productivity. And we really don't have the makings of a partnering relationship.
Mm-hmm. I know that one of the things that you talk about, asking questions for which we have no answers. How do I actually apply it? Tell us a little bit more about what are the kind of questions I want to ask? What are the kind of questions I want to avoid?
So what this means is, let's say that you have a project, but it's hard for you to let go. And you see how perhaps you want it to be done, but you need to delegate this. So you approach an employee about doing this particular project. One of the ways that you might partner and develop this rapport and use conversational intelligence is to ask, how might you think this might work? Or what are your ideas for implementing this particular project? What are the steps that you see that you could take that would enable this project to be successful? Now, those are questions that I have no answers for. I mean, I have my own ideas, but opening it up and allowing your employee to become empowered to take on this project, they're able to get better feedback, because often our frontline folks that have answers and they're just waiting to be tapped. This increases engagement and, again, productivity, and you have more of a partnering relationship versus a top-down. Now, if I just handed this to my employee and said, here, I want you to do it A, B, C, well, there might be some safety reasons, or there might be some specifics around how this particular project needs to get done. But if an employee feels that they don't have any input, then you might not get the best work, or depending on how it's given or the directive of how it's given, that could cause some shutdown.
Yeah, so let me ask you a question, because part of what I'm hearing is it's sort of shifting that conversation with somebody from being a helper to empowering them to own that project. And there's this thing about when we ask somebody. So I love what you're saying about starting out the conversation with, instead of I need this done, you need to do this, this, and this. So if I'm hearing you correctly, what you're saying is, hey, instead of approaching it that way, you start out with, there's this project that needs to be done, and here's the result we need to produce. How would you go about doing it? What do you think is the best approach to doing this, or to taking this on? Which then has their brain have to engage at a different level, rather than just being passive. They're having to be solution oriented and being more creative in the collaborative process, right? Which is what you talk about.
Yes.
And how do you encourage that with somebody? Because if you're in a culture that's used to, like, boss, employee, I tell you what to do, you're a helper, you go do it, right? So if we're starting to shift that behavior within an organization, if I'm wanting to start to do that differently, but I've trained my employees basically to be yes people and just to do what I told them to do. How do I encourage that in people? Because sometimes people's first inclination is going to be, I'm not sure, boss, tell me, because they don't want to be wrong.
Right.
So what's your thoughts about that? Like, how do you encourage that with people?
So I'm glad you brought that up, because there is a component of this where, when we are addicted to being right, and that feels really good to us, that we are right, we know how this is to be done. But if we can let go of that, and because we don't always have all the answers, and oftentimes we make assumptions that aren't necessarily true. Let me give you an example of somebody that I had a conversation with this week. She is a salon owner manager. And the way she implemented this in her salon was that every morning, she and her team of stylists, and she has about a dozen stylists that work in her salon, they have a 10-minute huddle. And the 10-minute huddle is all around, okay, so let's look at our workflow today. Where do you think you might have some challenges? And she's gotten her team to where, one person may say, oh, I've got 3 back-to-back, I'm going to need a break in between this. Or if they they have a difficult client coming in, or if they see something that, it just allows her team, when they see opportunities where they might need help, or they might be able to offer support to other stylists. They're much more collaborative in the way they work. And she's been highly successful with just that 10-minute huddle every day to ask a question which she has no answers for.
Mm-hmm. So part of what I hear you saying is it's a practice. So when you have a practice, so it may not be that like all of a sudden you start doing this and people instantly jump in and start offering solutions and suggestions and recommendations, or sharing with where they have challenges or are stuck. That if you continually do it again and again, and you have a practice around it, like the salon you're talking about, that they do a 10-minute huddle every morning, that, somebody like, I work with a lot of contractors, like that would be a great thing. Like you do a 10-minute huddle at the beginning of every day and on the job site, and go, okay, what are our challenges? What are we up against? What's our goal for today? What do we want to get accomplished? How do you think that, what do you see might get in our way? It's like, that's a practice. And I love that idea, actually, because even just that 10-minute huddle thing. Two things happen. One, it continually creates an opening for people to contribute at a different level and to be in a collaborative conversation about what are we going to create together. But two, it creates this habit, and it's not like a big deal. Like it's a quick, easy thing that can happen that somebody can implement. So that's cool. That's great. That's great.
Yes. And there's one more thing, that a small, like you said, practice that someone can easily implement. Oftentimes when we're in conversation, someone might say something that leaves a question. And instead of assuming that you know the answer, one idea would be to what we call double click. And 3 words have really changed my life around this too, is when you have a question, it's so tell me more. Tell me more about whatever it is. And those 3 words also are of magic when it comes to enabling trust to occur and to get more information and to form that partnership. And again, going back to the neuroscience about all of this, which I love, it geeks me out, is that you're raising your employees' oxytocin and dopamine, which are the feel-good hormones. So when people feel good, we know that they are more productive and they're more engaged. So why not elicit these feel-good hormones naturally and enable people to, when they enjoy their work, they're more satisfied. And again, raising the productivity and the engagement is what we're really trying to achieve through all of this.
Yeah, cool. So if you were to give people watching this like a list of, here are, I don't know, 3, maybe 5, like let's say 3, like 3 top questions or ways that you can respond or engage with your team to up that level of involvement, engagement, feel-good hormones, so that people, are happier at their workplace and you have lower turnover and more ownership of your team. Give us 3 key terms that people can use and take away.
Okay. Well, I've just given you one with tell me more. So that might be, because that one is actually my go-to when I'm curious, because you're coming from a place of curiosity. So it's tell me more. I'm interested. And that is a key way. Another is, so give me your thoughts or ideas about whatever. So say you're in a meeting, which we know that there's tons of meetings in our workplace, asking for some feedback. So tell me more about, or not tell me more, we just did that, but what are your thoughts and ideas around such and such? That would be another way to elicit or to get a response. Another would be to, it's just so appreciation. So I appreciate this, or, what was the best thing about what happened in such and such, if you're looking at a past event. Because when we're talking about what the best thing that happened, again, you're reinforcing the positive and appreciative communication that, again, elicits the best in an occurrence or what has happened.
Right.
It keeps your employee thinking positively, not to say that bad things don't happen, but even in a negative situation, what was the best that, what came out of this? What was the result that
right.
that came out of this, the best thing that came out of this perhaps negative thing.
Yeah.
What do we learn from this? Would be
Yes.
another one.
Okay. So here's a top 3 that I just heard you say is tell me more. It's a really great way to get people talking more and sharing their thoughts and ideas. Another way to do that and increase engagement is to ask, how do you think you would handle that? Or how do you think you would approach that situation or resolve that issue or create that next thing? And the third thing I heard was acknowledgement and showing appreciation. And even in a situation that maybe, you know, there was something that went wrong with it, there's probably some parts of it that went well, even when there may be some other parts that didn't. And even on the parts that didn't, to leave that situation with what's a good thing that came out of it that we learned from it that we're taking forward, because there's always that, you know, gift or silver lining in any negative situation. So I know that you have some type of a little cheat sheet that I'm going to put a link down here at the bottom of the video and also in the blog itself that people can go download. Just tell us a little bit about that, if you would, please. And also, Sonja, if somebody wanted to reach out to you, and can you tell them how to do that as well?
Absolutely, yes. So I do have a worksheet, and on the worksheet is what we call a dashboard. And on the right-hand side, just like your gas gauge on your car that's full, that is the terms or the characteristics you want to look for or try to engage your employees with to shift the oxytocin and dopamine. And on the left side is the negative, or where you could trigger cortisol, which is a stress hormone. And we know that stress in the workplace, it exists, it is high, and we want to minimize that. So, and I've also included some questions, a few questions of say more of this, and 3 questions that don't say this, so that it gives your audience an idea of, you know, how can I phrase a question that is going to be positive and enable trust versus a question that might trigger distrust.
Great.
And if people want to know more about my programs or want to talk to me personally, they can reach me through email. I'm at info@effectiveconnecting.com.
And I'll put that in the video as well. So great.
Okay, yeah, that would be the best place to reach me.
Right. So Sonja, you have been amazing. This has been a great little slice of how do we increase our effectiveness as leaders and managers. And I'm going to make sure to keep your cheat sheet close to me too, so that when I'm engaging with my team, I remember to use some of those terms. And thank you for all the great ideas today. Again, I'm going to put Sonja's information here on the screen where you can get a hold of her, where you can download that cheat sheet that she's offered you. And Sonja, thank you again for being here. I really appreciate you sharing your time and your wisdom and your expertise with our listeners.
Thank you so much, Vicki, for having me. I enjoyed it.
For everybody who's listening, I hope that you have found this to be helpful and valuable to you in supporting you in growing, thriving, and prospering in your business and in your life. And until next time, have a great one.